Hello, welcome back to the Fishlocker workshop. I'm now going to take some time to talk to you about a live bait rig that I've been using. I've been experimenting with it a bit over the past 18 months with quite a lot of success. I call it the Direct Contact Livebait rig, and it's from using for a boat. This is what it looks like. Pretty simple, and it's not a lot different than how you would possibly rig a live bait on a float, apart from there is nothing between the rod tip and effectively your hook length. You have a bullet lead on 8 to 10 inches, then a snap swivel straight to hook length. So very, very simple. Very few components, very simple and very effective. The components you'll need to make the rig are here. First of all, I like to make my rig body out of 40 or 50 pound mono. It's not really that important. You just don't want to go too light. The barrel swivel on one end. Now, as I was saying, this rig isn't unlike your live bait float rig. The only reason why I don't have a float on it is because times before when I've used floats for live baits, occasionally if there's a run of tide or so much wind, it creates a belly in the line. So as your float would be at distance, you could have a big belly in the line, so when the float goes, you're constantly winding in slack line before you can connect with the fish. Also, the line will be along the surface to a float and then down to your live bait, so you've got all this slack line to take in. Whereas this, because you have in effect straight from your rod tip straight down to your little sliding lead link, then to your hook, you've got nothing in between you and the fish. So as soon as a fish picks up, takes your bait, you register a bite. I have, like I say, I've been experimenting with this. Part of the reason why I keep my weight on a sliding piece was if you don't, what can happen sometimes is if you're using, say for instance, a mackerel and it's not a little joey, it's a decent sized mackerel. You can use big fish with big baits, but if it's still got a lot of life in it, or if it's a very strong fish, sometimes when you drop your lead or you drop your rig over the side and it's lowering, the fish can swim up in the water or at least not sink as quickly as your weight. And what happens is your lead slides down your main line and keeps going and going and going, and you end up where your lead will hit the bottom and you'll have 10 foot of trace out. So you won't know exactly where your live bait's fishing. Also, a fish could pick it up and you'd have all that slack down to your weight. You've got to bring in your slack before you feel the fish, the same way that the fish has got to go a certain distance before it registers a bite on the top. In effect, it also works a little bit like a bolt rig, like a self-hooking rig. Right, like this. The reason that I like a bead on either side of the lead is so that when it's sliding up and down, the lead doesn't damage the knot. On the other end, again, just a normal barrel swivel but with a snap linking. This is for attaching your hook lengths. I like to fish this rig very light if I can. I just have a little spinning rod. I have an 8 pound Blackrock Hellboy that I just fish with a fixed spool reel with 20 pound braid, and I have I think I usually have like a 30 pound mono rubbing leader on with a snap swivel that I just connect straight to. I just connect straight to there. So you've got your main line coming down, your rubbing leader, snap swivel, clip that straight on there, and then your hook length goes straight onto the end of here. And for hook lengths, I like to use, say, a 30-pound mono. You can use heavier, you can go lighter. The reason why I generally go a little bit heavy is because I don't want that fish of a lifetime to come along and snap me off because I was using 20 pound when I could have used 30. You get the point. 2 feet to 2.5 feet. Just a simple barrel swivel on the end for connecting easily to the end of your weight trace, and a nice strong 4 or 5 or. Don't worry about using big hooks. You're going to be using a live bait this big, and you're fishing for a fish that could eat that in one. Bass, pollock, their mouths are like that. That hook, that's easily the right size. This rig fishes well, or if you're drifting, all I'll do is I'll hook a live bait joey on or a live bait sandale, and I'll lower it to the bottom, let it hit the bottom, quickly give it 2 or 3 winds, so I'm suspending it off the bottom. Because if you think about it, if you're connected up like this, this is connected to your main line, that's like that. You lower down till your weight hits the bottom, give it 3 or 4 winds and hold it off, so your weight is 6 or 7 feet off the bottom. Your bait might only be 3 or 4 feet off the bottom. If you're fishing tight inshore where there's kelp, your kelp might be 3 foot tall, so your bait is just above the kelp or just above the rocks, which is the prime hit zone for a bass or a pollock. I like a bit of tide because I feel that the bass and the pollock hunt better when there's a bit of tide. This weight is now trapped on there. If the tide picks up, all I've done is I have a little box. If the tide picks up, I put a heavier one on. All you do, just unsnap it, snap it onto your main line, snap your hook length to the end, use a 3 ounce. If the tide drops, drop down to a smaller one. If the tide's very strong, you can even connect 2 in tandem, and they'll always just sit like that. Whereas before, if it was just connected to your main line, you would have to disconnect it, put a new weight on, maybe reset your float. It saves loads of time. And like I say, I just keep 5 or 6 of them in a box ready to go. So all you do is you just snap one on, snap one off. Another reason why I like a little bit of tide, I fell foul of this one time before. I was anchored up on a piece of reef, just maybe 1.5 miles off, and I was fishing for bullets and congers. And all I usually do with this, if I catch a live bait, a decent size one, I keep it in a bucket, keep changing the water, keep it alive. When the anchor sits, I'll just sit my spinning rod in a rod holder, lower it to the depth that I want, just leave it, set the drag on the reel, fish away, and just keep watching the rod tip. The tide had slackened right off, so there was no drift in the tide, and I should have been paying more attention to it, but the bait had ended up on the bottom, and a conger picked it up, and I ended up landing a 14-pound conger on a spinning rod. So it does catch bait. As I've said, I like a live bait joey. Just a little mackerel about this big, and all you do is you just take the hook and you just pass it up underneath its chin and make it come out just in front of, between the eyes. Don't go too far back. If the hook comes out between the eyes or further back, it'll go through the brain and it'll kill it. But if you hook it up just underneath through the chin and through both jaws, coming out just before, between the eyes, it'll stay alive for ages. And they just swim around on there, happy as you like. You can also use sandales or lawns if you can catch them or if you can buy them. And they're perfect. There's 2 or 3 ways to do that. You can lip hook them like with the joey, or you pass it through the gill and nip it off into their fins underneath, into the pectoral fins. I've also used paw cod, little pouting, little wrasse. I have seen that I've caught more bass on live mackerel, and I catch more pollock on live sandale. Other people might find different, but that's what I've found in my area. Also, I've found that I pick up more fish with this live bait method than I do with lures. my logic behind that is that you will never be able to present an artificial bait as well as a live bait looks. Bite indication. As I said, what I usually do is if I'm fishing on a drift over an area of rough ground, I will hold my spinning rod in my hand, and all I'll do is occasionally I'll lower it down, leg touch bottom and wind up again, just so I know roughly where I am, because as the ground changes, one moment you could be fishing 3 feet off the bottom and the next it could be 10 feet or it could be 1 foot. If you see a bite and it's just a sharp hit, sometimes what bass do, bass have got a big spike on the back of their gill, and they come in and they hit a bait like a joey mackerel or a little sandale or something like that. They'll come in and they hit it and stun it, and then they come back round and have it again. It's very difficult to do is not to strike and try to reel in. As soon as you get a real good bite, think, oh, nice one. Oh, try not to. The first bite is something's found it and hit it. Wait a few seconds, maybe even just lower it slowly like that, as if your fish is stunned, and it'll come again. And all you're waiting for is you're waiting for the strong pull over, as in the fish has taken it and swallowed it. And then all you need to do is just lift into it gently and start reeling. With pollock, what they'll do generally is they'll bite a bait and they'll hold a big sandale in their mouth and then they'll swallow it. So you might have a couple of little hits like that. Just give it a few seconds, maybe even give it a little bit of line, and then all you do is just tighten your drag up, and as you're drifting, you'll drift away from the fish and just lift into it. The direct contact live bait rig.